Everybody, just to reiterate once more, the great Torah that we're saying today is the Ilui Nishmat Daniella Moffson bat Rachel Shira, as well as for a very dear community member over here who's not doing so well, a young father. Refuah Shlema, these words should be Refuah Shlema for Abraham ben Zahava. Rabotai, what are we crying about on Tisha B'Av? What is it that we're crying about? So many of us are very well connected, and we've learned about what the days of the Bet HaMikdash were. It's hard to live it, but you can learn about it. Just to give you an example, there's the famous story about Yosef Meshita. Yosef Meshita was a Jew who was part of the army of Titus, of Titus. And when he was going to ransack the Bet HaMikdash, nobody from Titus's army wanted to be the first one to go in. What are you, nuts? They didn't like Jews by any measure whatsoever. But they were superstitious. And they said, I'm not going to be the one who's going to go in. Who are we sending in? And they chose the Jew. Go inside. He said, okay. He went in. The Midrash says something unbelievable. The Midrash says on the Pasuk, Vayigash vayishak lo vayreach vayarach et reach begadav vayivarchehu vayomer reach nichoach beni kreach sadeh shebercho Hashem. Back in Bereshit, when Esav came to his father, so it says, by the brachot, Yaakov and Esav approaching their father. So it says over there that he smelled the scent of the field. Vayivarechehu, when he blessed him. And he said, Re'ei reach beni kreach sadeh shebercho Hashem. See my son, like the scent of the sadeh of the field that HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed us with. And the Midrash says, on the Pasuk, this Pasuk that we just mentioned, Al tikre begadav ela bogdav. Don't read it. His clothing smelled nice. Rather, bogdav, the ones who rebelled. There was a beautiful scent of the reach hasadeh. The rebellers, the troublemakers, the Jewish troublemakers, those guys like Yosef Meshita, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has on them this beautiful smell, even when they rebel. So Yosef Meshita is the guy who goes in. And what does he come out with? The menorah. The great menorah. And he comes walking back out, and they say to him, because they made a deal, they said, whatever you grab first, you can have. They say to him, well, that deal is off. You grab the menorah is for us. Take whatever else you want. And he said, no, this is a fix. You gypped me. They said, look, we'll give you anything. No, we'll give you 3 years of taxes. We'll all go directly, a direct deposit into your account. He said, no. Abotai, the fate of Yosef Meshita was such that he ended up getting killed, a very gruesome murder. He rebelled even against the army that he joined. And he did teshuvah towards the end of his life as he was getting killed. He said, there is no way, and he came to his senses. He said, there is no way that after having gone in and done what I did, I'm going to go back again and I'm going to sin. No, nothing doing. And he refused to go back in. And they killed him. And the Panovitcher Rebbe, the Panovitcher Rav, rather, he asks a beautiful question. He says, the Midrash speaks about Yosef's Meshita as one of the examples that even when he rebels, Bogdav, the rebellious people, they have a beautiful scent. He says, what? Just because for a second he ran into the Bet HaMikdash and he ran back out with something and he didn't want to switch it for anything else. Because of that, he has a beautiful scent to him. And he answers and he says the following. He says, yes. As a matter of fact, he says the greatness of the Bet HaMikdash was that you were able to go in for 2 minutes, for 10 seconds, and it made such a tremendous effect on who you are that it changed you as a person. That was the power of the Bet HaMikdash, which we no longer have. We just don't. And then you have people who cry, but not because they necessarily understand. Nobody can fully understand the lack and the loss of the Bet HaMikdash. But you have those who cry. And why do they cry? And it's many of us sitting here, and that's good, that's fine. We cry because we want to be able to feel the sadness a little more. We're sad because we're not sad enough. But there's one thing that we have both in common. The one who really cries because he understands what he's lacking, or the one who's crying because he wants to understand more about what he's lacking. He's lacking the feelings of knowing what it is to lack a Bet HaMikdash. And the common denominator between the two is the most important midah ever. The most important midah. And that's the midah of empathy. Empathizing and feeling and understanding. You know, the great Admor, the Rebbe of Gur, had a brother who was named Rav Moshe Betzalel. Rav Moshe Betzalel, Hashem Yikom Damo, he was actually killed in the Holocaust. He never made it out. And one time someone approached him in one of the concentration camps and told him, Rav Moshe, how is it possible that you're besimcha? Everyone is despondent, depressed. Hashem Yishmor. And he said the following. He says, I know that when I'm sad, the Shekhinah is sad. He says, I also know that at least if I'm able to bring a little bit of happiness, it'll bring a little bit of happiness to the Shekhinah. This is what empathy is all about. My Rebbe, Rav Noach Orlowek, Shlita, would always tell me, you could think about yourself. You could think about someone else, but you could never think about two people at a time, at once. Impossible. We have one brain. Unless you're Reb Chaim Ozer Brzezinski, the great Gadol, post-World War II, he was able to actually write with two hands at the same time. My Rebbe says over that when his Rebbe, Reb Simcha Wasserman, once walked in to Reb Chaim Ozer, there were 6 people around him asking him 6 different questions. And he's watching this, he's like, is this for real? And at the same time, someone runs in, Mr. Cohen, he's the wagon driver of the town in Vilna, and he asks very quickly, he says, can I take the grusha, the divorcee? And as he's answering 6 people, he goes, yeah, no problem, and gets back to it. Tak, tak, tak. A few people around look at him and say, Rabbi, don't you know? Right? Kohen, take the gerusha. You don't understand. He's a wagon driver. Okay. He was asking because he understood that there was a reason perhaps not to take her. I'm not sure what the question was. Yichud, I don't know. But he understood it quickly. But not everyone is Reb Chaim Ozer. But you could think about yourself, you could think about someone else, but you can't think about 2 people at once. The midah of empathy, Rabotai, is something that Tisha B'Av, Rabbi Ari spoke about, how it's the most important fast. And I can't agree any more with him. But I'm going to take it up another notch, if you will. I think Tisha B'Av is probably the most important day of the year. What? Yom Kippur. I'm not coming to argue on any of the Chachamim. Yom Kippur is the most important day. Yes, absolutely. From an Isur perspective, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, 100%. But from an emotional place, where are you able to tap in the most? It's Tisha B'Av. See, on Yom Kippur, we're all afraid. We're scared, right? Willing to spend any money on Petichat Ha'echal, right? Just not to learn the hard way, right? That's Yom Kippur, but it's out of fear. But Tisha B'Av is very different. Tisha B'Av, whoever you are, you know, Rabbi Farhi opened up the beginning, maybe, I don't know, five hours ago or so. I was able to listen to the first few minutes, and he spoke about how Torah Anytime's largest viewing out of the entire year is Tisha B'Av. Hundreds of thousands of people are streaming in and watching. Unbelievable. Tisha B'Av out of all the entire year? And the answer is yes. Because the ability to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sometimes it seems like, well, I'm upset at you. That's why we're still here and Mashiach hasn't arrived yet. But at the same time, it's such a real relationship and it's so genuine. And it's so sincere that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, but I'm so close. The great Kiddushat HaLevi, Reb Levi Yitzchak, he brings a mashal and he says how a father, you know, had this beautiful suit tailored for his son. And he gave it to him and he went out with it. And the first few minutes he went out with it, he felt, he ripped it, and that was the end of it. He says, okay, son, we're going to make you another suit. Makes him another suit. Gives it to him. Within the first half hour, he falls, he trips, and he rips the suit again. The third time, the father says, I'm going to make you the suit, but we're going to wait. I'm going to wait until I see that you're no longer the clumsy kid that you are, and I'm going to give it to you when you're ready. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the same way. He built the third Beit HaMikdash. It's there, and all he's waiting is to give it. He also brings another mashal in a different place. He says, imagine you have a person who knows that the mayor of his town loves guitars, and he buys him the most expensive and exquisite guitar that there is. Saves all of his money and gives it to him. Now the mayor sees it and he says, wow, thank you so much. You know I love playing guitar. He says, that's tremendous, right? Wouldn't he appreciate it? That's a tremendous act on this man, whoever did this. He says, but what about if this man goes back 300 years and goes to the king and tells the king, I know how much you love guitars, and he buys him a guitar. What's greater, buying it for the mayor or buying it for the king? What do you think? There's no question that buying it for the king is greater. And the answer is, because when the mayor receives what you gave him, he sees it as, this is exactly what I wanted. The king can afford everything in the world. He can afford the guitar. He can afford a guitar that hasn't been produced yet and is the best guitar in the world because he's going to make sure to make it. So what does the king see? The king sees the will, the wanting. That's what the king sees. I don't need your presence. I need you. And that's what he gave. And that's what he's giving to the king. So Tisha B'Av, we're crying. And again, some of us are crying because we understand on a certain level. Some of us want to understand, but at least there's empathy. There's the wanting to get closer to Hashem and to understand what it is that we're lacking, but we're exercising that most important midah, which is empathy. I'll tell you something. It's quite fascinating. Just a few hours ago, when the program began in New York, so Rav Duvi ben Shushan, right? He's like, give you an example. You know, like your friend has an older brother, right? He's too cool, right? It's the same thing, right? So I work with Rav Ari, and then there's Rav Duvi, right? He's a bit too cool for us, but it's really cool because I get to watch him. Right? Rav Ari, we're already friends, right? And Rav Duvi is giving over this beautiful message, and I literally tune in for about, 3 or 4 minutes. And Hashem makes me listen to this part. You ready for this? He says over a fascinating story about Rabbi David Abuchatzera. Shlita. The great Rabbi David Abuchatzera from Nahariya, he says that he was by him pre-COVID, like literally right before COVID, and he noticed that he's standing the entire time for hours. So he turned to his shamosh and he said to him, excuse me for those of you who are listening, who heard this story for the second time, and he turns to the shamosh and he says, like, why is the rabbi standing up? Let him sit. He says, you don't understand. He said, the Chacham had a dream. And the Baba Sali came to him in a dream, his grandfather. And he told him, today, Mashiach came through your doors. And you were sitting. And you did not give him the proper respect. And ever since he had that dream, he said, I'm not taking any more chances. And he stood up. And he keeps standing up till today. Now, I've been to Rabbi David multiple times. It's hours. We're talking about hours. His day starts at 3 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m., and ends somewhere around midnight, 1 o'clock. It's a long day. It's empathy. It's not about me. I'm not thinking about my legs. I'm thinking about each and every person that's coming through the doors with, their issues, their pekelech that we all come through the doors with. But the reason I'm telling you this is not because of this story. I don't need to repeat this story. The reason I'm telling you this story is really connected to something else. One of my students here, who's not here right now, he was diagnosed with a tumor in his finger for the second time. So the first time they operated, they took it out. And now his finger looks like a golf ball. And he went to his doctors, and one of them says, you have to operate. And you got to get rid of it. And the other doctor says, you got to amputate. And he asked me, he says, like, what should I do? Like, do I really know the answer? Oh, no. If you want to be able to affect people's lives, you have to know how to say, I don't know. A doctor who doesn't know how to say, I don't know. A rabbi who doesn't know how to say, I don't know. Or even a parent who doesn't know how to say, I don't know, is doomed to messing someone's life up. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, I had a hunch based on what his meeting with the doctor was. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor who says to amputate it walks into the meeting and says, ha ha ha, they call me the butcher doctor. And he looked at him and said, what? He didn't say this, but he was thinking to himself, what a jerk. What a jerk, right? And this is like one of the biggest doctors in Los Angeles, right? One of the biggest surgeons in this particular field. He started laughing and saying, they call me. So he thought it was funny. Whether it was, whether it wasn't. You don't say that to someone you're about to chop his finger off. It's traumatic. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you, I sent this question over to Rabbi David Abuchatzera last week. So I'm busy watching now. There's someone who's close to me, is close to Rabbi David, and he sends the question over. I get a voice message, and I see the name of this person who's close to me. His name is Ran. So I see Ran on my phone. When do I get that message? In those 2 minutes when I'm listening to a story about Rabbi David Abu Chatzera. And I know this is the response for Rabbi David. I'm hearing another story from him. You got to be a Sephardi to appreciate this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, white people. Listen to this. Okay? I listen to the message. Rabbi David says, do everything you can to save that finger. Yeah, but one of the greatest doctors and someone else who's also a religious Jew who's great and understands medicine are also said to chop. No, do everything you can to not break, to not amputate it. As he's talking to me, because I call him back, he leaves me a voice message. I call him back, I say, Ran, really? Tell me, give me the details. How did you say it? What did you say? I want to know everything. This is important. Like, you want to know did you tell him what the other person said? And as he's speaking to me, all of a sudden, he cuts his own finger. Look, I'll tell you something. I'm not the heebie-jeebie type. But there's one thing I can tell you for sure. That when it comes to certain periods of time, there's obviously so much that's going on in the background that we have no idea. We're all connected somehow, somewhere. I don't know, maybe his little, his cut that he got on his finger is part of a kapara that he's taking over for this person who needed to get his finger amputated for. I don't know. And I'll never know. But one thing is for sure, when he told me the meeting he had with this doctor, and he told him, I'm the butcher doctor, there was something inside that told me that, no, can't be, sorry, I don't care how great you are. If you're able to be a jerk and not empathetic and show any empathy whatsoever to someone like him, I can't believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu given the siyata dishmaya. They say about Rav Michal Yehuda Lefkovich, Zichronot Tzadik Livracha. His grandchildren once asked him a question. They said, we just saw something crazy. He said, what? He says, you have Ruach HaKodesh. He says, I don't have Ruach HaKodesh. What did you see? He says, well, this Bachur just came walking into the room, and you asked him, did you pray Shacharit today with the minyan? And he responded, no. How did you know to even ask that? And he said the following, and not out of, he wasn't saying this in a haughty way. He said, when you're doing the will of Hashem, Hashem puts in your mouth, without you even realizing what you're about to say, he puts in your mouth what you need to say. And if you do the opposite, I can't imagine you'll have much siyata dishmaya like this doctor. So I was glad to hear that Chacham David said not to amputate it. And so the Kutzker Rebbe says, Chachamim tell us, Kol ha-she'arim nin'alu chutz mi-sha'arei dim'ah. All of the gates are closed except for the sha'arei dim'ah, for the gates of tears. And the obvious question is, if tears go right through, so why are there any gates? Shouldn't be any gates whatsoever. And he says the following. He says, yes, there are tears of sincerity, and there are tears that are not sincere. You could be genuine and you could not be genuine. Empathy is not about the show. It's about what you feel inside. That's what determines your relationship with the other person. You can think about yourself, you can think about someone else, but you can't think about two people at a time. My Rebbe, Orlowick, was telling you about, I brought him to Montreal. I used to bring him every year to Montreal, which is where I'm from. This was for sure more than 15 years ago because I was single at the time. And every year we used to bring him. And I had an aunt whose husband passed away from cancer, left 3 young children at the time. And I mean, this man was a tzaddik. Like, he was honey, he was cake, he was honey on Tisha B'Av. I mean, that's how delicious he was. I mean, he was a classic tzaddik. And guess what? He didn't make it. And for months, my Rebbe was telling me, make sure that he preps the children. Enough of, yeah, everything's going to be okay. Of course we want everything to be okay. But what if it's not okay? You can't just throw the kids off guard. You got to be ready. He came to Montreal and I had him meet my late uncle. And he sat with him for hours. And I remember like going into the room and saying, Rebbe, mincha, right? Ignored me completely. And left the room, waited. It was already nighttime. He walked out and he said to me, I saw the motions. I knew exactly what you were saying. He said, there's no way I could have stopped the meeting. Do you know how important that was? We were in the deepest of conversations, preparing his children for literally the ultimate. And a year later, I brought him back and he was speaking to my aunt. I kid you not, 3 hours listening to an almanah crying. Didn't say a word. 3 hours. You could think about yourself and you can think about someone else, but you can't think about two people at a time. So here we are. Al Naharot Bavel, Sham Yashavnu Gam Bachinu. So Klal Yisrael is being taken in chains and shackles, horrible torture, and they're passing by the Naharot Bavel, the river of Babylon, and there they are, they're crying. Why? Not because of the physical torture, Sham Bachinu Bezochrenu et Zion, just because of the mere remembering of what Zion, what Yerushalayim was like, that we no longer have. It was the ability to walk in and walk out and be a completely different person. You know, there's an amazing pshat I want to share with you. The Chachamim tell us about why it is that we don't wear shoes, leather shoes that is, on Tisha B'Av. One of the things that's brought down is that if you think about it according to the pshat, so a shoe is just one of the 5 inuim, it's one of the 5 ways that we suppress our comfort. But the truth of the matter is, it's a little deeper than that. The Bnei Sachar quotes the Maharam Chagiz, and he says, you know what the function of shoes are on a deeper level? He says, before the chet of Adam and Chava, so the land, the earth was all, the Adamah was all blessed. And as soon as they sinned, it turned into a curse. Now you got to work it, right? Now you're materialistic yourself. You look for materialism. Your focus is material, unless you work on it. So the Adamah became cursed. It's no longer the same earth that there was before the sin of Adam and Chava. So he says, you know what shoes are? Shoes are the ability to separate and to cause that separation between you and the floor. It elevates us to another level, which is why the Kohanim, they would walk without shoes on when they were in the Bet HaMikdash all the time, without shoes, because the earth was holy. Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu by the burning bush, he says, take off your shoes. Ki admat kodeshu, because it's holy. It's a holy floor. Shoes are only there in order to separate the unholy from the holy. And that's exactly what Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av is all about. We elevate ourselves to a whole different level. Yom Kippur, maybe because it comes more from Yirah, because we're afraid. But you know what? Tish'a BAb, it comes from love. I know I haven't been behaving well, but I still understand how much you love me, because the choice was either us or it was the Bet HaMikdash. And the Bet HaMikdash was chosen to be the one who was destroyed, and we are still around. Hashem Yisbarach chose us. It's like a relationship, a husband and a wife. When it comes to a child, the child doesn't decide. Except in California, but the child doesn't decide. I want to be a boy. I want to be a girl, right? I want to be a British citizen, even though I was born in America, right? It's against logic, right? It's not for real. You can't choose when you're the child of someone. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't necessarily make us the child. All of Shira Shiurim is revolving around a husband and a wife. And Hashem Yisbarach chose us and said, I will never forsake. I may be upset at you, but I'm never going to let you go. I'm never going to do that. It's the ability to be sincere. Just to end off, we know that when Mashiach comes, what he's going to do is he's going to come to distance and to bring close. Lo yavo Eliyahu. Eliyahu is only going to come. He's going to come and he's going to distance those who are close. And he's going to bring close those who are distant. What in the world does that mean? And the Ben Yehoyada explains to us, based on the Gemara that says, Sheker mekarvan milei. The word sheker, its letters, shin, kuf, and nun, and resh, are very close to each other in the Hebrew alphabet. Emet, says the Gemara, marchika milei. You have aleph all the way at the beginning, you have mem smack in the middle, and you have taf all the way at the end. Says the Ben Yehoyada that sometimes a person could be genuine, he could be emet. And you might convince yourself, it's not real, it's fake, it's a show. Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come, and the first thing he's going to show us, Rabotai, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to show us what true emet is. Everything is going to be clear. Sheker, which seems so close and so true, he's going to be marchiket, says the Ben. He's going to distance it, and it's all going to be clear to us. Nobody knows what's going deep down inside. You don't know what's going on in someone's life. Why she looks a little bit more modern, right? Be the first one to judge, right? Why he comes late to Bet Knesset. Why he doesn't learn enough. Why she doesn't show up to her cousin's wedding. Whatever it may be, we're the first ones to judge. Comes Eliyahu Hanavi and he's going to make everything clear for us. There's one thing that nobody can take away from us. It's our empathy. It's what we feel inside. Nobody can steal that from any one of us. That is the most emet midah, and it's the most genuine midah, which is what, when Tish'a BAv comes, we once again remind ourselves that it's because of this midah, that all we need is a few more, and Hashem has it. Here it is. Here's the Bet HaMikdash. I'm just waiting to drop it. You ready? Come on, just one more. All we have to do is just a little bit more genuineness, a little bit more empathy. Myself included, every one of us on our own level, more empathy. That's what's going to bring Mashiach closer. Because then it shows how much we really empathize with the tsar of the Shekhinah. I said over to the guys last night, we were sitting here in the dark, about Rabban Gamliel, how he sat and he cried and he cried and he cried because he had a neighbor on the other side of the wall who was a widow who had only one child, which she lost. And she would cry every night and he would cry with her every single night until his eyelashes fell out. That's called empathy. Chacham Yehuda Tzadka, just to end off with the following story. So it was a night like last night. Tish'a BAb fell out on Motzei Shabbat. And someone needed Havdalah. And they decided that they were going to have one of the children drink the wine. Most kids don't really like wine. Yehuda Tzadka promised him, if you drink the wine, I'm going to give you a candy. And he drank the wine. So the Rabbanit runs to the shelf and she pulls out the candy. She's about to give them. And Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka, Zichrono Tzadik Livracha, the great Rosh Yeshiva, turns to his wife and says, just not yet. Let's wait till tomorrow night. Although a child can eat a candy, he says, but it's Tisha B'Av. Even a child has to feel it. And as soon as Tisha B'Av fell out on Sunday night, before anything, Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka, he was old, he was frail, he was sick. He was running around the yeshiva as quickly as he could, trying to look for the child, trying to look for the child's father. And the students are telling him, Rabbi, first come home, have your tea, have your soup, break your fast. He says, no. Emet is something that you take care of right away. Imagine if the child has for 1 second, a doubt in his mind that the Rosh Yeshiva is lying to him and he's not sincere. B'ezrat Hashem should be zochet to see through our exercising of our midah, of empathy, of love, of emet, empathizing, feeling the pain of the Shekhinah, feeling the pain of one another. And it's going to come much closer and much quicker than we thought.